There comes a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes deafening, when you realize you are standing in a space where your worth is overlooked. Maybe it's a relationship where your love is a given but never reciprocated. Maybe it's a workplace where your efforts are expected but never acknowledged. Or maybe it's a friendship where your presence is convenient but never truly valued. Your worth is not up for debate, is not something that fluctuates based on who acknowledges it, who validates it, or who fails to see it. You do not become more valuable when someone praises you, just as you do not become less valuable when someone ignores or dismisses you. Your self-worth is an inherent, unshakable truth, one that should never be placed in the hands of others to determine. Yet, so often, we find ourselves seeking external validation, hoping that if someone appreciates us enough, acknowledges our efforts enough, or loves us enough, it will confirm that we are indeed worthy. We measure our value by the feedback we receive, by the recognition given at work, by the affection shown in a relationship, by the attention received from friends or family. And when that validation doesn't come, when our efforts go unnoticed or our presence is taken for granted, we begin to question ourselves. Am I not good enough? Am I asking for too much? Should I try harder, do more, be more? But here's the thing, you are already enough. You were enough before anyone noticed you. You were enough before anyone appreciated you, and you will continue to be enough even if certain people fail to recognize it. There is a dangerous cycle that begins when we allow others to dictate our self-worth. We start overcompensating, pouring more of ourselves into people and spaces that do not reciprocate our energy. We work harder, love harder, show up more, hoping that if we just do a little extra, the appreciation will finally come. But appreciation that must be begged for is not real appreciation. Love that has to be proven over and over is not real love. And worth that depends on the validation of others is not real self-worth. It's conditional, fragile, and ultimately unsustainable. The moment you realize that your worth does not depend on anyone else's ability to see it, you reclaim your power. You stop accepting the bare minimum. You stop making excuses for those who continuously overlook you. You stop shrinking yourself in the hopes of fitting into spaces that were never meant for you in the first place. Self-worth is non-negotiable because it is the foundation upon which you build everything else in your life. If you let others decide it for you, they will always undervalue you. If you let external circumstances determine it, you will always be chasing an ever-moving target. But when you decide, truly decide, that you are worthy regardless of who acknowledges it, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of proving, convincing, and waiting. Boundaries are not walls built to shut people out. They are the gates that allow love, respect, and appreciation to enter while keeping toxicity and disrespect at bay. Setting boundaries is an act of love, not just for yourself, but for others as well. It teaches them how to value you and in turn encourages them to examine how they value themselves. Imagine living in a house with no doors, no fences, no signs of what is personal and what is shared. Anyone can walk in at any time, take what they want, leave a mess, and walk out without a second thought. Over time, that house becomes chaotic, unlivable even. And yet this is how many of us treat our emotional and mental space. We leave it wide open, allowing anyone and everyone to step in, make demands, take energy, and often leave us feeling depleted and unappreciated. Boundaries are the doors and fences that protect our inner sanctuary. They are the silent, unwavering statements of what we will and will not accept. Lines drawn not out of anger or fear, but out of self-respect. They remind us that it is not our job to make everyone comfortable, happy, or satisfied at the expense of our own well-being. But setting boundaries isn't easy. It requires courage, the courage to say no when it's easier to say yes, the courage to prioritize yourself even when others demand more of you, and the courage to walk away when your boundaries are repeatedly crossed. This courage doesn't come from a place of resentment or bitterness, but from a deep, unwavering commitment to your own self-worth. The beauty of boundaries is that they do more than just protect. They transform. They transform how you see yourself, affirming that your time, energy, and emotions are valuable. They transform your relationships, shifting the dynamics so that they are based on mutual respect rather than one-sided sacrifice. And they transform your life, creating space for peace, growth, and genuine connection. Consider this. Every time you set a boundary, you are teaching others how to treat you. You are communicating that your needs are not secondary, that your feelings are not optional, and that your well-being is not negotiable. Boundaries do not push people away. They filter out those who refuse to honor your worth and make room for those who do. However, there will be resistance. Some people will not like your boundaries because they benefited from your lack of them. They may accuse you of being selfish, unkind, or unreasonable. But remember, other people's reactions are not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to uphold the standards of how you deserve to be treated. Setting boundaries is not about creating distance, it's about creating clarity. It's about defining where you end and another person begins. It's about understanding that while you can care deeply about others, you must also care deeply about yourself. It's about realizing that you are allowed to be a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously, protecting what is already beautiful while working on what still needs growth. So embrace the power of boundaries. Let them be the compass that guides your interactions, the shield that protects your peace, and the silent affirmation of your worth. Understand that boundaries are not limitations, they are liberations. They do not close you off from the world, they open you up to the right people, the right opportunities, and the right kind of love. Ultimately, boundaries are the highest form of self-respect. They are the unspoken promise you make to yourself that you will no longer betray your own needs to meet the expectations of others. They are your declaration that you are enough, that your peace is worth protecting, your heart is worth honoring, and your well-being is worth prioritizing. In embracing the power of boundaries, you do not just protect yourself, empower yourself. You give yourself permission to walk away from what diminishes you and move toward what truly honors you. And in that movement, you find not just your strength, but your freedom. Discomfort is one of the greatest teachers we will ever encounter. It is the space between where we are and where we are meant to be, the bridge between stagnation and transformation. Yet most of us spend our lives avoiding discomfort, mistaking it for danger rather than the necessary tension that precedes growth. Think about the moments in your life when you truly changed, when you became wiser, stronger, more self-aware. Did those moments come from ease and comfort, or did they come from struggle, heartbreak, uncertainty, and challenge? The truth is, growth is rarely born from comfort. Comfort keeps us still, complacent, and unchallenged. But discomfort stretches us. It forces us to look inward, to ask hard questions, to push beyond our perceived limitations. We often resist discomfort because it feels unfamiliar. It forces us out of our routine, out of our safety net, and into the unknown. But the unknown is where life truly happens. Every great transformation, whether in personal relationships, career, mindset, or self-worth, begins with discomfort. It is the spark that ignites change, the friction that shapes us, and the fire that refines us. When you choose to walk away from spaces where you are not appreciated, there will be discomfort. The absence of validation may feel unsettling at first. The temptation to return, to seek approval, to make excuses for why you should stay will be strong. You may feel loneliness, doubt, and even regret. But that discomfort is temporary. It is the growing pain of stepping into a life where you no longer tolerate less than you deserve. Think of a seed buried beneath the soil. It must break apart before it can sprout. It must push through the darkness before it reaches the light. Growth requires breaking, stretching, and pushing beyond what feels safe. But the seed does not resist this discomfort. It embraces it because instinctively it knows that the discomfort is necessary for it to bloom. We too must lean into the discomfort of growth rather than resist it. We must recognize that the pain of staying in a place where we are not valued is far greater than the temporary discomfort of leaving. We must remind ourselves that every great transformation begins with a moment of unease, a moment when we must decide whether we will stay where we are or step boldly into something greater. Discomfort is a signal. It tells us when something no longer serves us, when we have outgrown a space, when we are meant for more. It is not a punishment, it is an invitation. An invitation to level up, to choose better, to demand more, and to trust ourselves enough to walk through the uncertainty toward something better. The beauty of growth is that once you've expanded, you can never go back to being small. The pain you once feared becomes the wisdom you carry forward. The fear you once felt becomes the confidence that fuels you. The discomfort that once seemed unbearable becomes the catalyst for a life where you no longer settle for anything less than you deserve. So when you find yourself in a space where you are undervalued, overlooked, or unappreciated, and the thought of leaving makes you uneasy, remind yourself, discomfort is temporary, but growth is forever. The fear will pass, the uncertainty will fade, but the strength you build from choosing yourself will remain. Do not let the fear of temporary discomfort keep you from the growth that is waiting for you. Lean in, trust the process, and walk boldly toward the life you were meant to live. One of the hardest lessons in life is accepting people for who they truly are, not who we wish they could be. We often hold onto the potential of a person, believing that with time, patience, or more effort on our part, they will change. We ignore red flags, make excuses for their behavior, and give them more chances than they deserve, all because we want to believe that deep down, they will one day become the person we hope for. But here's the truth. People show you who they are, and it's your job to believe them. When someone consistently takes you for granted, dismisses your feelings, or fails to show up for you, that is not an accident. That is a reflection of their character, their priorities, and their values. Yet, so often we make excuses. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they're just stressed. Maybe if I prove my worth, they will treat me better. But how many times must someone show you who they are before you believe them? Patterns don't lie. A single mistake can be an accident, but repeated behavior is a choice. If someone repeatedly fails to appreciate you, respect you, or value your presence, they are showing you exactly what place you hold in their life. It is not your job to convince them of your worth. It is your job to recognize when their actions no longer align with what you deserve. The danger of ignoring the signs: when we refuse to accept people for who they are, we end up hurting ourselves. We stay in relationships that drain us. We invest in people who take without giving, and we lose pieces of ourselves trying to hold on to something that was never meant to last. Think about the times you've overlooked red flags in a relationship, a friendship, or even a workplace. How often did you tell yourself, they didn't mean it, they'll change, it's just a rough patch? And how often did things actually get better? More often than not, people continue to be exactly who they have always been, and the longer we ignore reality, the more we suffer. People are not defined by their words, they are defined by their actions. Someone can say they love you, but if they constantly make you feel unimportant, their words mean nothing. Someone can promise to change, but if their behavior remains the same, their promises are empty. If you want to know who a person truly is, watch what they do, not what they say. Letting go of the illusion. So one of the most painful but necessary things we can do is let go of the illusion we have built around people. It is painful to accept that someone we care about does not value us the way we value them. It is painful to walk away from a relationship, a friendship, or even a job where we are unappreciated. But what's even more painful is staying, hoping for a change that will never come. You cannot love someone into treating you better. You cannot prove your worth to someone who refuses to see it, and you cannot force someone to be who you need them to be. The only thing you can do is believe them when they show you who they are and decide if that aligns with the life you want to live. Making the choice to walking away from people who do not appreciate you is not about revenge, anger, or proving a point. It is about self-respect. It is about choosing yourself instead of waiting for someone else to choose you. There is freedom in accepting people for who they are because it allows you to stop fighting battles that were never yours to win. You stop trying to change them. You stop waiting for them to suddenly wake up and realize your worth. Instead, you take their actions at face value and make a decision. Is this the kind of treatment I am willing to accept? If the answer is no, then you must be willing to walk away, not because you don't care, but because you finally care about yourself enough to stop settling for less than you deserve. We've been taught that strength is about endurance, about how much we can bear, how long we can hold on, how much we can tolerate before breaking. We hear phrases like, stay strong, fight through it, don't give up, as if perseverance is the only measure of courage. But what if real strength isn't just about holding on? What if the bravest thing you can do is let go? True courage is not found in how much you endure, but in knowing when to walk away. It takes strength to stay, but it takes even more strength to leave, especially when leaving means stepping into uncertainty, facing judgment, or letting go of something you once believed in. The illusion of strength and endurance. Many of us stay in situations far longer than we should because we equate endurance with resilience. We convince ourselves that if we can just withstand the discomfort, if we can just hold on a little longer, things will eventually get better. We tell ourselves that quitting is failure and that walking away is a sign of weakness. But is it really? Think about a relationship that no longer serves you. Maybe you've given everything, your love, your time, your patience, only to be met with neglect, indifference, or even mistreatment. You tell yourself, if I just try harder, if I just love more, things will change. But they don't. And yet you stay because leaving feels like admitting defeat. Or consider a job where you are undervalued and unappreciated. You wake up dreading the day, but you tell yourself, it pays the bills, it's not that bad, I should be grateful. So you stay, enduring the stress, the exhaustion, the lack of recognition, all because society has conditioned us to believe that sticking it out is the noble thing to do. But what if the noblest thing is knowing your own worth? What if the strongest decision isn't to endure, but to recognize when something is no longer right for you? The courage to leave, walking away, takes courage because it forces you to face the unknown. It forces you to break patterns, to step outside of your comfort zone, to confront the possibility of failure. It means letting go of the familiar even when the familiar is painful. It means choosing yourself even when the world tells you that self-sacrifice is more admirable than self-preservation. But here's the truth. Leaving is not failure, it is freedom. It is freedom from a life where you are not appreciated, freedom from relationships that drain you, freedom from environments that stifle your growth. It is the moment you stop surviving and start living. It is easy to endure. It is easy to settle. It is easy to stay in a situation that is comfortable, even if it is slowly diminishing you. But to leave, to walk away with your head held high, choosing your self-worth over someone else's inability to see it, that takes extraordinary courage. Breaking the narrative of endurance, we must stop glorifying endurance when it comes at the cost of our well-being. Staying in an unappreciative environment is not loyalty, it's self-betrayal. Tolerating mistreatment is not strength, it's settling for less than you deserve. Pushing through exhaustion, pain, and unhappiness just for the sake of endurance does not make you brave. It makes you a prisoner of someone else's expectations. Courage is not found in suffering quietly. It is found in standing up and saying, "This is not enough for me. I deserve better." The exit is not the end, it's the beginning. Many people fear leaving because they equate it with an ending. They think of it as closing a door, burning a bridge, losing something they invested so much in. But leaving is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one where you are finally in control. Think about every moment in history when someone walked away from something that no longer served them. The person who left an unfulfilling job and found their true passion. The individual who walked away from a toxic relationship and rediscovered their self-worth. The dreamer who left behind expectations placed upon them and carved their own path. None of these people were weak for leaving. They were strong for choosing themselves, for choosing growth over stagnation, for choosing to honor their needs rather than endure their suffering. Walking away is not weakness. It is one of the greatest acts of self-respect. It is the moment you decide that your worth is not up for debate, that your peace is not a luxury, and that your presence should never be taken for granted. When you realize that self-worth is non-negotiable, you stop begging for appreciation and start demanding it through your actions. When you understand the power of boundaries, you no longer tolerate what drains you. When you embrace the temporary discomfort of leaving, you make space for the permanent growth that follows. And when you finally believe people when they show you who they are, you stop trying to change them and start changing your environment instead. Courage is not just in endurance, it is in the exit. It is in the moment you stop making excuses, stop waiting for change that will never come, and start choosing yourself. It is in the decision to walk away from places where you are unappreciated and step boldly into a future where you are valued. So if you find yourself holding on to something that no longer serves you, ask yourself, am I staying because I believe this is right for me, or because I am afraid to leave? Because the truth is, discomfort is temporary, but growth is forever. And the sooner you step away from what diminishes you, the sooner you step into the life you truly deserve.